candy?" asked the unicorn brothers in unison. "Yes, candy, my industrious friends, though it is just a means to her ends." Sikora carefully scraped up the bloody chunks that Fluttershy had carved up earlier and showed it to the brothers. In the slight form their horns they could see the sharp shards for what they had truly were, jagged bits of hot candy. "Fluttershy will no longer do you harm, but these candies are still cause of alarm." The zebra tossed the sweets into the campfire, where they started to melt, then burst into flames that twisted and howled, illuminating the fields as far as the eye could see. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get loose, Cora," said Fluttershy weakly. "I thought I smelled something and then I heard voices. I thought they were familiar, but I guess they weren't, and—" She tried to stand, but instantly fell back into the dirt, her wings splayed awkwardly. "Don't," said Big Mac, as he bent down and lifted the small Pegasus into his broad back. She squeaked a bit in protest, but was obviously still too weak to really resist the larger earth pony. Fluttershy's tail and mane were long enough that they dragged in the dust as Big Mac turned and walked away from the farm back towards the Everfree Forest. "Zikora's right. Y'all should leave. The sooner the better. And don't come back, ya hear?" "Zikora's right. Y'all should leave. The sooner the better. And don't come back, ya hear?" That is the most I've heard him say any pony else in a year. It is Big Mac's custom to speak with brevity without fear. Zikora piled her hood back over the head and began to follow after the pair who had already disappearing into the tree line. "You should take this advice with respect and care. I say only on this ride. Night in this place beware. There are things lurking in the dark that you would not wish to meet. I bid you a good night, but also a hasty retreat." After the two had disappeared in the forest, the brothers took stock of their situation. "Do you think that's true, brother? Are we out here in the middle of nowhere for nothing?" "Well, Flynn, I have to admit they were the first ponies I've seen in days. It's nothing but abandoned farmhouses for miles around." Flem stroked his mustache thoughtfully. "But that doesn't mean that our trip was wasted. As I've always said, behind every setback is an opportunity. Whatever curse that Zebra's babbling about might be, this land is still prime and fertile. Why, with a little elbow grease and some creative paperwork, we could turn this entire area into flim-flam fields overnight." "I think I've seen what you're getting at, brother, but with no pony around to sell our produce to, wouldn't it be a better investment?" asked Frim. A thin, silvery mist drifted in from the fields, coiling through the stalks of drying grass. "Details, brother, details. Once we have the supply, we can create the demand in any market we want." Fram's eyes glazed over as he thought of the possibilities. Something rusted in the tall grass not far from the firelight. Flynn turned and squinted in the darkness while his brother went about factory farming, seemed harder and harder to see. The mist had coasted into a thick fog. The campfire began to flicker and pop, the flames dipping lower and lower in the hot embers and coals as the fog grew thicker around the farmhouse. As his brothers talked on and on, Flynn thought he heard some pony laugh just at the edge of his hearing. "Shh! Do you hear that, brother? I think there's some pony out in the fields," he hissed. "Oh, this again? I'm sure that's just that weird zebra coming back to return at us some more. Unraveling her gibberish is such a tiring chore." Flem realized that he had done a front. "Oh no, Flynn. Now she has me doing it." "I don't think it's the zebra, Flam." The fire burned lower and lower, as if it was being smothered by the mist. With a final hiss, the flames died altogether. Even the coals were little more than deep cherry red, as though they had been cooling for hours. The green glow of the brothers' horns seemed subdued in the sudden absence of the fire's cheerful light, their magic surrounding the brothers in a hazy green nimbus. The larder was still quiet, but it echoed throughout the fog, twisting and turning. Quiet as it was, it seemed to be drawing closer. I think it would be wise for us to make a strategic withdrawal. I fear I must agree, brother. Next town? Next town. As they turned to run, they immediately skidded to a halt. Between them and the road was a single tiny filly-sized pony. Each limb was bent and twisted, curled into cruel hooks where hoofs should have been. In the pale moonlight, the pony glowed a ghostly white. Red stripes, almost black in darkness, curled around her body from her muzzle down through her tail. As the brothers watched, the thing twitched and twisted toward them. A pair of purple glasses perched preciously on her nose, barely hid eyes that were swirled with candy-striped madness. Her thick, curly red mane was a wild nimbus around a sharp smile that literally split the thing's face wide open. Instead of proper teeth, she had a wicked-looking set of peppermint stick fangs, each ending in a sharpened point. The filly whispered, "Hungry." Both brothers turned and attempted to run for the everfree forest. An even larger impediment stood there, two massive blobs that just barely resembled ponies. One was dark and hunched, the smell of chocolate wafting from it, while the other glowed a fluorescent spearmint in the light from Flim's horns. These slithered grotesquely across the soil, their limbs stretching unnaturally towards the brothers like lengths of taffy. Other shapes, equally bizarre and horrible, began to lunge and glide out of the fields. They giggled madly as whispers of "hungry," "nightmare night," and "what a fright" rose in croaks and moans all around the unicorns. "This way, brother!" shouted Flim as they ran for the only way not blocked, the abandoned farmhouse. Flim threw open the front door and ran shortly after his brother, slamming and blocking the door with a nearby desk. As the brothers watched, a thick brown liquid began to ooze through the cracks under the door. The meaning from inside grew louder as a steady pounding began to shake the house in all sides. The doors began to splinter under the weight of whatever was on the other side. The brothers barely backed away in time as the doors and desk shattered into splinters, which were themselves engulfed in chocolate and salt water taffy as the two gooey creatures entered the house. Flim and Flam bolted from the room, skidding through the kitchen. What seemed to be a meal now rotted after months of going uneaten, buzzed with flies and maggots in the dining room. They had no time to ponder what this might mean as they tore down a nearby hallway and past the dusty storeroom that seemed to be caked in coagulated blood. They ducked